have been working on comparing two fractions with the same denominator by reasoning about their size based on the same whole and justifying the conclusions based on the results of your comparison. We've been using math vocabulary with the words fraction, numerator, denominator, comparisons. We've been using comparison symbols and looking at conclusions, justifying, and whole number and equivalent, and using these symbols down here. Today we're going to take a turn and we are going to flip what we've been doing. Today we're going to start working on fractions that have the same numerator but have a different denominator and comparing those two fractions.
So we've been working with the same denominator. Today we're going to switch it. We're going to have same numerators, but our denominators are going to be different. And this is more challenging because our models are partitioned into different parts. Here's how we're going to do this. Let's start with a video about what this looks like when we compare fractions with the same numerator, but our denominator is different. Let's check it out together.
Grammarly does more.
Comparing fractions with equal numerators. As you learned before, a fraction has two numbers. The number below the bar is the denominator, which tells you how many equal parts are in the whole, while the number above the fraction bar is called the numerator, and it tells you how many equal parts are represented.
That was good.
As you know, a fraction is greater than another fraction if it represents a bigger chunk of the same whole. And if two fractions are divided into the same total number of equal parts, then we say these two fractions have the same denominator, and the greater fraction is the one with the greater numerator. But if we have two fractions, 2/6 and 2/16, are they equivalent, or is one of them larger than the other? If you look carefully at the two fractions, you will find that they have the same numerator, but the denominators are different. What does that mean? Well, the numerators are equal, so every fraction represents two equal parts of the whole. For both fractions, the whole is the same size, as you can see here. But which fraction is bigger? Notice that in the first fraction, the whole is divided into 6 equal parts, while in the second fraction, the whole is divided into 16 equal parts.
Whoa.
As you can clearly see, 1 part out of 6 pieces is bigger than 1 part out of 16 pieces, and 2 parts out of 6 is bigger than 2 parts out of 16. Therefore, the fraction 2/6 is greater than 2/16. In general, if the numerators of two fractions are the same, the fraction with the smaller denominator is the greater fraction.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into our seesaw task together.
Okay.
Kellen should not hear you.
Okay. What?
Go ahead and open to Seesaw, please. And we're going to click on Activities. Assign to Class folder. Blue Math folder. And today is our first day where we get to do same numerators, different denominators. Here's our task. Please open it up with me. On slide 3, we're going to take some notes together that will help us understand comparing fractions with the same numerator, but different denominators. Here's our first sentence. Number 1, the blank, the denominator, the blank, the piece. I want you to type in with me. The first blank is smaller. The smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece. So the first blank is smaller. The next blank is bigger. The smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece. I'm going to draw an example of this right now. When we cut something into 1/2, our denominator is only 2. That's a pretty small denominator. But if I cut something into 100 pieces, oh my gosh, right? If there's 100 different pieces, my denominator would be 100.
Or 1,000.
So when you have a denominator that is small, that means your piece is actually bigger. But when you have a big denominator, that means you have a tiny piece because you're sharing it so many different times. Okay? So it feels kind of backwards. You think, oh, if the number's big, the piece is big, but that is not how fractions and division work. You know this when you have to share something. If you have to share something with one person, you get more than if you have to share something with 5 people, right? So the smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece. Let's keep going on to our second one. Number 2 says, the larger the blank, the smaller the blank. The larger the denominator, denominator, the smaller the piece. First one is denominator, second one is piece. Think about my example. If I cut a pizza into 100 pieces, that's a big denominator, but the piece is actually very small.
Yeah, like pieces.
Right? The smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece. The larger the denominator, the smaller the piece. Go ahead and take 1 minute to finish typing in those notes. Number 1, if the numerators are the same, look at the denominator to determine which fraction is bigger. We're going to type those in together. Look at the denominators to determine which fraction is bigger. If the numerators are the same, look at the denominators to determine which fraction is bigger. I know, I just locked mine. You can do the same. So squeeze these in to fit into the blanks. After you're done typing.
I just copied the one we got top.
Oh, that's great. You can do the same.
I copied the one top.
Okay, for number 2 tells us If the denominators are the same, look at the numerators. That's what we did the past few days. When the denominators are the same, look at the numerators. We've been doing a really good job with that. When the denominators are the same, look at the numerators. Okay, who can infer what would make sense here? It says whichever numerator is blank is the bigger fraction. What have we been practicing? Nick, what could be there?
Less.
Whichever numerator is less is the bigger fraction.
No.
Think about when they're the top, right? If we are comparing, let me show an example. If we're comparing 3/4 and 1/4, when the denominators are the same, look at the numerators.
So the one that's 3 is higher.
Yeah, whichever numerator is
Higher.
greater, bigger, is the bigger fraction. That's when the numerators, the denominators are the same, right? We've been doing that. Today we're going to practice what if the numerators are the same. The biggest. Whichever numerator is, I'm going to say greater,
I'm gonna say greater.
is the bigger fraction. Whichever numerator is greater is the bigger fraction. So we're learning two different skills. You just mastered one the past few days. Friends on Zoom and friends in person, I've been checking your work. We know how to compare fractions when the denominator is the same. Yay us. Today we get to try comparing fractions when the numerators are the same. Denominators are different. Go ahead and finish your notes here. Yes, Nick. Well, sorry about you. Third graders can type. All right, finish up your notes right there, and we will get to practice together by looking at slide number 4.
Miss Dave, if you could please stop twice. And he keeps on doing.
You've heard from your classmate. Okay, thank you so much for being respectful. We always want everybody to be able to learn, you and him and others.
I didn't do that after that.
Thank you so much for stopping. I appreciate that. All right, let's look at slide number 4. Slide number 4. Okay, here's some cool tools. Oh, that rhymes. Cool tools. Love it when we rhyme. Check it out. This is a visual. Look at all these different fractions. At the top is one whole. And then we have all the different fractions. In 3rd grade, we learn about a few of them. We really focus on 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/6, 1/8.
What about 1/4?
In 3rd grade, those are the fractions we work on. When you get older, you start to learn about 1/5,
Oh.
1/10,
Oh.
1/12. There's other fractions. There's 1/9, 1/7.
19.
But these are the fractions that we really want to show you. So notice what we just talked about that in our notes. Look at these denominators. 2 is the smallest denominator, but it is the biggest piece. Look all the way down here at 12. 12 is the biggest denominator, but it's the smallest part. It's the smallest piece. Because it's the biggest denominator. When we have to share with 12 people, we get a small piece, right? When you are comparing fractions, I want you to be thinking about this picture, and you can come back to it today to look at it, to see when we partition only 2 times, it's a much greater piece. If we partition 3 times, it gets a little smaller. If we partition 4 times, it gets smaller all the way down. to 12 parts is the smallest piece. Yes, Nick?
Just like everybody gives a birthday cake and they get the last one.
Just like that. Theo?
On my birthday, well, I found the biggest one. Got the bug. The 2.
And this is 1/1. That's the same thing as 1 whole. So Theo is correct. This is actually the biggest denominator. And that means it's the biggest piece.
I don't get the biggest piece.
Yes, Day?
No, we have to share. Just buy one.
You could buy more. Okay, the second thing I want to point out, I want you to look at this link right here. Oh, focusing attention. Look at this link right here. This is a tool that can help you compare fractions. I want you to open it up. You had a chance to explore this a few days ago when you were done with your work. I remember Angela exploring it. Maybe some other kids checked it out too. Here it shows fraction bars, and here's the fraction. So right now I have 1 whole. And then I want to show 1/3. So I click to make the denominator bigger, and then I can move it. So maybe I'm showing 1/3 and I'm going to compare it to 1/6. This is a tool that can help you show two different fractions. Notice how the numerators are the same, but the denominator is different. This is a really helpful tool because it helps us see how many parts we have partitioned. Okay, let's go ahead back to Seesaw and let's get to practicing some together. I want you to click on slide number 5 with me. Greatest. I'll put it for you. Click on slide number 5, please. And let's look at this example together. All right, look with your eyes. Build a model to represent the comparison. Write the correct comparison sentence using less than, greater than, or equal to. Here are our fractions, 1/4 and 1/2. I notice the numerators are both 1. Our numerators are both the same. So we need to look at the denominator. Look at the denominator to tell us which piece is bigger. Check out our denominators. 1 is 4. 1 is 2. They're different. So our models will be partitioned into different amounts. Look closely at the model. I see 1/4 right here. This is my 1 whole at the top. Miss Sharp has built 1/4. And she put it next to 1 whole. Then she built 1/2. She put it next to the model so we can compare them. I see with my eyes that this bottom model is bigger. 1/2 is greater than 1/4. This makes sense when you think about sharing. If there's only 2 kids sharing, you're going to get a bigger piece than if there's 4 kids sharing, right? So Miss Sharp chose the symbol. 1/4 is less than 1/2. This is what we're going to do today. We're going to build a model to show and then justify our answer. We're going to explain how we know. Take a look at her answer. 1/4 is less than 1/2 because the unit fraction has less shaded of the whole. She's looking at the parts that are shaded. She said 1/4 shades less space than 1/2 does. She's using that math vocabulary to explain. Okay, I think we're ready to start trying some and checking in on our own. I want you to go to slide number 7. Slide number 7. I want you to use the tool to show a model. You're going to use 1 whole, and then you're going to show 1/8 and 1/6. Oh, I already did 1/6. Perfect. And now I'm going to show 1/8. I have used 1 whole, 1/8, and 1/6. I want you to build it. And then I want you to use your symbol and show me which fraction is greater. Is it 1/8 or 1/6? Tell me your response on page 7. Then we'll go over our answers together. You have 1 minute to work on number 7. You may begin. We were to compare 1/6 and 1/8, and I have shown that using my model. At the top is 1/6. The bottom is 1/8. Oh, I mixed that up. Sorry about that. Let me redo this. I mixed it up. The top is 1/8 because there's 8 equal parts. And the bottom is 1/6 because there's 6 equal parts. So which part is bigger? I see the 1/6 unit fraction is greater. It takes up more space. So we can go to Seesaw. And let's justify our answer. Let's explain how we know. So 1/6 is greater than 1/8. So we read this, we say 1/8 is less than 1/6. So how do we know? It's time to talk about our answer. The blank, the denominator, the blank, the unit fraction. The smaller the denominator, the bigger the unit fraction. Remember, go back to our tool. When your denominator is small, you have a big part, a big unit fraction. I feel like there's some people that are not quite getting it, but they're not trying to focus. This is where you need to listen and look to pay attention. When your denominator is small, you have a big piece. So let's go to our example on number 7. Which denominator is smaller, 8 or 6?
6.
So 1/6 is a bigger unit fraction because there's only 6 kids sharing it. So let's type in our response and model that. The blank, the denominator, the smaller the denominator, the bigger the unit fraction. The smaller the denominator, the bigger the unit fraction. This is what it looks like to justify or explain how you know. You use math vocabulary. You think about the unit fraction. You think about the words that we've been talking about. I want you to finish typing in your response, and then we will talk about your independent task today and what that looks like. Okay, your independent math time today. You need to start on slide number 10. That's where it says independently. You are going to use our tool. You're going to build fractions and represent them. I would like for you to try to take a screenshot of your model, take a picture of your model to put it on your Seesaw page. That way I can see the model you built. and it helps me understand what you were thinking when you did your comparison. So you're going to build a model using the tool, take a picture of it, put it on your Seesaw task, and then you're going to compare greater than, less than, or equal to. Then you're going to justify your answer by typing in words like we've done together. You need to finish all of the slides starting on slide 10, finish all of them, and reflect on your success today. How did you feel comparing fractions with the same numerator, different denominators? Remember, it's okay on the first day if you don't get it. We have more practice tomorrow and next week. Okay? I will be on at 12:45 for friends who have questions about their work. I'll be on my office hours at 12:45. All right, good luck on your work time.